Welcome to Service Packaging. I'm Matt Hill. This is Bubble Dread. We are with Start9, and given the small amount of people in the audience here, that makes a lot of sense. This is a slightly more technical workshop. We're definitely not going to expect everyone in here to know Rust or even Bash. But if you're here, it either means you're just interested in knowing how the sauce is made, or you're interested in making some sauce. So it's good for both of those reasons, and that's what we're going to get into. So the goal of this is to give you a high-level, high to medium level view of how you or anyone you know might go about grabbing your favorite piece of open source, self-hostable software that exists in the world, and there's thousands of these things, and make it available on Embassy OS such that it can be run by people who would have no idea otherwise how to obtain and use this thing, right? So you're providing a service for both yourself and for anyone else in the world who might want to enjoy the same software that you do. In the title, it is worth mentioning, of this workshop, it was mentioned that we were going to go over kind of how to package for Embassy OS and also how to package for Umbrel. Not because we're with Start9, because we think both are important. We're going to bypass the Umbrel one because we don't have time. It's just going to be too much to cover in too short of a time. And so we're going to focus on the one that we obviously are a part of and think is more interesting, and so we're going to do that. All right. So a couple of quick things here. Why run a personal server? I'm going to blow through these because it's not the purpose of this talk. Running a personal server and running your own software on it basically means that you are not dependent upon others to run that software for you. There's no such thing as using software on your phone, laptop, or computer that in any way, shape, or form connects to a cloud, which is necessary for most of what we do today because you want things to sync across devices, right? These aren't siloed things. They are networked and synced devices. There's no way to do that without involving a third party. And when you involve a third party, you are inherently trusting that third party, and they can abuse this 6 ways from Sunday through privacy invasion, spying on you, censoring you, extorting you, charging you, you name it, right? And it's all happening, and it's all happening more and more and more. And so it's becoming increasingly important to cut out the middleman, to cut out the third party, and essentially host your own cloud-based software such that you can go anywhere in the world and use your phone or laptop, and those things can all be synced together and networked with other people's software, and there's no trusted third parties involved at all. You're completely independent, you're completely private, you're completely sovereign. Nobody can stop you, nobody can charge you, nobody can spy on you. It's actually a really, really important thing, and it's gaining importance by the day. We think it's the future of how humans will compute in this world. So that's why you do it. What is Embassy OS? Embassy OS is the world-leading operating system for a non-technical, average individual to run a personal server, right? So if running a personal server is really important and running a personal server is really hard, that's not a good mix. Okay, that is a mismatch in the market where demand is growing and there is no supply, right? There's nobody who can give grandma a personal server that she can administer herself. We can't yet either, but we're getting there and we're in the lead. We still have a ways to go. It is easy to use, but it's not as easy as it will be. That's what Embassy OS is. You can think of Embassy OS as like Windows in 1985 or Mac OS around the same time. It wasn't called Mac OS at that point, but we have created an operating system that will facilitate the entire process of discovering, downloading, installing, configuring, running in perpetuity and without third-party trust, your own personal server and any variety of software that you want to run on it. So why package a service? Well, because who wants a personal server if there's nothing to run on it? Okay, so what good is Windows or Mac OS if there's no text editor or word processor or Internet Explorer? Like, you need apps, we call them services, to run on this thing to make it interesting. We have about 25 or so, and growing fast, services available for the embassy, and we want a lot more. We want hundreds, then thousands, and then too many to count. And that means community, individuals, and companies coming together to package these things up, right? We do have the benefit of not needing to develop these things from scratch. They already exist. There are tons of wonderful open source self-hosted apps and services in the world. They don't need to be built. This isn't a if you build it, they will come strategy. This is a they're already built, let's get them put into boxes so that people can have them at their house, okay? So that's what this is. It's about taking something that already exists and putting it into a box such that Embassy OS, the operating system, can understand it and pass it along to a non-technical user to use, okay? That's the high-level stuff. Now we're actually going to dig in. We're going to package multiple services right now, today, in this short demonstration. It's not that hard. One of them is Hello World. Super, super easy. The second one is a real service that we're actually going to try to package in real time for the first time. So it might fail, as it usually does. Yeah, you'll get to witness the head-banging part of making this crap work. Here we go.
Cool. So, can you guys hear me?
You got to talk it.
Oh, check. Okay, cool. How much time do we have left so I can pace myself here? Okay, so the next 40 minutes, 50 minutes of your life.
Hey, Dred, can you make the TV bigger?
No. We're gonna try and do all of this at once. So keep up with me, but also ask questions along the way. If there's anything at all you want me to try and clarify, it's very important. I want you to understand what I'm doing every step of the way, so that when you try to do this yourself, it'll make sense. Or you can jump in our matrix groups and ask us. All right, first thing you need is the foundation, or your environment. All the devs in here kind of know they have to set up a dev environment. If you're not a dev, and I got to be very honest with you guys, I was not a dev really until I started coding with Start9 or on my own hobby-wise, because in corporate America I was just making spreadsheets and PowerPoints. Even though I knew code, I wasn't actually practicing it. So you don't have to be a dev to get this. I got this without knowing any of the stuff that you might see your everyday programmer know. I set it up myself. I used the Linux, but I'm also using Mac now. You need Git. You need Docker installed. You need Cargo, which is a part of Rust, their package manager. You need Rust in general. You need the Embassy SDK, which you can download from Start9, from their GitHub. And you need Dino. It's like a JS something, TypeScript. Yeah. As you can tell, you don't need to know in depth what each one of these things do to know you need them as a dependency to be able to package a service. And then you need the last thing, which is the most important dependency, is determination. So it's a hero's journey. It's not going to be a one-day thing to package and your app is up and running. You're going to go through some hardships. They're going to be rocky roads, not just chocolate chip and mint. All right.
The really important kind of one-line takeaway from this screen here, you don't need to understand anything that he just said. Okay? This is all. You don't need to understand the details, right? What you need to understand about this screen is that in order to package a service, you first have to go get your tool set. Okay, these are tools, and there are wonderful, easy little guides online about how to get those tools. Right. So even if you don't know what Git is, getting Git is easy, and if you were to go about this, you'd be able to get Git. Get your Git.
So this analogy you're going to love, and I can definitely say I came up with it. Matt had nothing to do with the idea. It's all mine. And but if you think about the tools we just told you to get, those are more like kitchen tools, restaurant tools, cooking tools. We need you to get that because this whole analogy is going to make a lot of sense when you realize how it all works together. Right? So the first thing we're going to do is create a shell, or create your kitchen, really, with all the things you need. And the first thing you need in your kitchen, if you're actually going to cook something, is what you're going to cook, the recipe. And that is the Docker file. So, let me go back.
I'll point to these because it's kind of small.
Yeah. Can you guys see it from in the back? No. Okay. So
the first line here, so we're talking about a restaurant, okay? You're a restaurant owner, and this is a great way to think about this. It's going to help, right? So Docker file is the first one.
Yeah.
So the Docker file is your recipe, what you're going to make. It's the main course that you're going to serve at this restaurant.
Yeah. And if you know what it is ahead of time you're going to make, that usually drives what else you need to be able to make it, right? So the next file you're going to have in your folder is your docker_entrypoint.sh. That's a shell script. And that is your cooking instructions. What that means is, how are you going to make this? What you want to make, but what are the step-by-step instructions you need to give, the cook, or in this case, the program, the operating system to make it for you, the Docker to make it for you. The third file is the icon.png. This is your restaurant logo. I think we use SVG now as well, and you can use that to take the upstream repo or whatever open source project logo you have and use it as your service logo. The next file you have is your instructions.md. That is basically your hosts and your waiters. What that is giving you is instructions, like the waiter says, this is the way to your table. Please, use this knife and fork, or there's your glass for your wine. Like, this is instructions to give the user on how to operate in this service. Next is the license. This is a file that shows like an MIT license or otherwise, and this is the law of the land. Like, you guys know what a license is. Next is your makefile. Your makefile is the kitchen and the staff. This is going to make sure that everything is happening and in concert. Like you have all your things and they're all happening a certain way, and they all have instructions on what to do. You don't have to tell them what to do. That's what the makefile is. And then your manifest.yaml, I think this is one of the most important ones. This is your serving and dining experience. This is going to give the user the description of what you're looking at. How it's plated, how it smells, how it looks. How they're going to feel about the service when they first see it on the marketplace. Manifest.yaml, which is yet another markup language file, is going to show you. Or you're going to show it, actually, since you're making it. The next is readme.md, a markdown file. That is just your billboard. That's telling everybody in the world what is in this service and how to build it, actually, is in there too. And scripts is a folder that we use as for health checks, for your config file, for your properties file. All of that is what we call your cookware and your techniques. It's all the different things and utilities that you can do with the service, similar to all the different things you would be doing to cook your food or using to cook your food. And then all of that is what you need usually to build a service. However, if you're testing and you want to just see, you want to take like a hello world and change it just a little bit to see what you can build for yourself, like hello gym or hello surfer gym, the only files you need to change in order to test your own service from the hello world template would be these 4 files. We call them the bare minimum edits. So that would be like if you and your sous chef are in the back and you're just making something, hey, taste this for me. You're not going to go plate that and give it to somebody, but that's what that's the bare minimum. I like that part of the analogy too. See, I made that one by myself. And that's very important for you to know. We'll go through it when we get to the hello world section, but just remember that it's really just 4 files you can change, and you can take one of our best practice templates and make it your own.
You're not doing this from scratch, okay? There's a template that you start with, bare minimum, make a couple changes to those guys, and now it's a whole new service. And you really want to get crazy, sky's the limit. You can do all sorts of stuff.
If I want to do this, I have to follow these steps. Is there instructions that's going to lead me in the right direction?
Correct. Yeah.
Not make any mistakes?
This is
choices along the way?
This is sort of an analogy reference point, so that as you go through the process, you can kind of, it'll start to make more sense. Like how the manifest.yaml is the serving and dining experience might not make sense to you right now, but once you start getting in there, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I get why that is the analogy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And the team revamped and is continuing to revamp the step-by-step detailed instructions on how to do this, which is also on the website. You can see it for yourself and follow along there too.
And is it getting more concise?
It's getting easier.
Yeah.
It's getting
Less
smaller.
steps. Yeah.
We are focusing on this now. This has not been a focus in the past because it's always been a thing, but we haven't really dug in and focused because Embassy OS was not mature enough to accommodate the kind of volume that it can now. The services are about to get crazy. There's going to be hundreds of these things soon. It's going to really proliferate. But the operating system had to get to a certain point of maturity before we could handle that.
This is a great segue because him saying that is so true, because before when I wanted to make and test my own thing, I had to, go back on the command line and SSH into my terminal, and then, or before I SSH into it, SCP the file over, and then SSH into it, and authorize and load it up, and then make sure it's installed. All of that just to test one code change. Now, they have this new thing that they call sideload as part of the OS. I literally take the file from my laptop, drag, drop it to the window, and it's installed. I'm like, it saves me hours and hours of development work. And that's what they're doing on the OS side. So every time you do this, it's going to get easier and easier. And I've already seen the results of that. But so that's what this is. Ship it is literally drag the file you just made onto your browser window. It just has a big old thing, kind of like what all the other applications nowadays does. Drag your photo if you want to upload it to your email. It's the same thing. And you just click install and you run it. You'll see us do it in a second. Question from the Penny section?
You're going to,
Michael, I'm talking to you. Oh, okay.
you're going to demo it. I was going to ask a question, but you're going to demo it. So.
I can tell you're going to troll me all day today, so I'm ready for it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and, this is frozen? We're going to go ahead and package Hello World now. But
Is it not reflecting?
that was weird. It was under, anyway. Yeah, so this package is sample service. We had a bunch of slides to show you how to do it, but I'm just going to jump in and do it here. I'm going to put the microphone over here. Actually, you can hold it if you want.
I'll talk. You click, I'll talk. You know what? I should stand over here in case I need to point to something.
So this is my embassy.
So we're not setting up an embassy today, right? This tutorial starts where the embassy setup ends. And setting up an embassy, if you just have a device, is a matter of plugging it in and setting a password. So.
And then I'm going to go ahead and start by going to GitHub. Should it up? Sorry, there we go. And I'm going to pull on a repo we call Hello World, which is your sample service. The bare basic, just like you put Hello World in Rust or C++.
See now Bitcoin does a whole bunch of cool stuff. Hello World just says Hello World on the screen. But other than that, they're pretty much the same thing. Hopefully we get some internet help here. Otherwise this could get painful.
You guys see the screen? Is it too small?
It's definitely too small for people at the back to see, but I can
All right, so I'm on Hello World.
paint it with words.
I'm going to go ahead and click on code, and I'm going to copy the Hello World GitHub repo URL. And then I'm going to go into my own VS Code, my own code editor. You can use whatever you want. I'm going to use VS Code. And I'm going to start a new one here.
Okay, so he's grabbing our Hello World service template from our GitHub and downloading it to his computer such that he can start to make edits to it. And this is exactly what someone would do if you were trying to package your first service. First thing you do is go get Hello World, get it on your computer, and then we'll start editing those 4 files we talked about to make it your own.
So I just git clone Hello World router. I just clone that in from down to that was wrong. Starting off wrong, start that back.
Oh, you're in the wrong directory? Great.
Awesome. All right. Alright, you want that, guys? Oh. Okay, ready again. So it's git clone Hello World. And just like that, we've downloaded it. We're going to jump into the folder. And we're going to see if it makes, first of all, I guess, see if it actually works as it is.
You probably need the branch.
Already on master?
It's not on master, the new one.
So the branch that we're using,
Update 031.
update/031.
Yep. You will not need to do this. We're currently, like today and yesterday, making pretty heavy changes to the Hello World template. So he's getting the latest and greatest as opposed to what you would have found on there a couple days ago.
It's like Hello Universe now. Big upgrade.
This guy.
All right, wrong branch now. The latest. Yeah, once this is unmasked, you'll just do the clone first and then make. But we should see what's going on in the meantime. So let's look at it, right? Hello world. And we'll start with the Docker file.
Yep. Okay, so as he explained earlier, the Docker file is your recipe, okay? This is all the ingredients necessary to make the Hello World service. So what he's covering here is Alpine. Alpine is a Linux distro, okay? You can think of it like Ubuntu. It's just a different Linux distro that is known for small package sizes, which is great because we don't want, huge services because they take forever to download and they bloat the system and they take up disk space. So Alpine is a great base OS to use when you are installing a service onto it, right? So Docker containers, by the way, we should probably do a quick little thing about Docker containers. I'm not going to get into the gritty of it, but basically you can think of a Docker container as a system within a system. So here we have Embassy OS, but on Embassy OS, you have this service, Hello World, is running in its own contained, isolated environment that has its own base operating system, in this case, Alpine, okay? So Docker works with OSs within OSs, okay? It's the non-technical explanation. So we're going to grab Alpine, and then we are going to update Alpine to make sure that we're, have all the latest dependencies and package files. Now we're going to add 2 more packages. So run APK. So APK is how it's telling Alpine what packages you want. We're going to grab Teeny and curl, which will both be useful later down the line. And then we're going to add a few more things, right? So we're going to add Hello World. The actual source code of Hello World is right there. And then we're also going to add a couple of health checks. So on Embassy OS, and anybody who's running a server, you want to know if the things running on that server are healthy. And what defines healthy could be anything, right? Like, is Bitcoin healthy if it's 50% synced? Some people might say yes, some people might say no, right? It depends on what you need it for. It's healthy in that it can give you, the current mempool, but it's not going to give you the latest block. So you, the developer, right, is a very creative process here. You get to define what constitutes health and how to convey that message to the user. So you would define, in this case, there is a health check that called check web. And what this health check is doing, and we'll dig into it later, is it's literally just pinging the web interface to make sure that this thing is available so that the user gets a nice little green check mark and it says, hey, this thing's ready to use, visit its URL and it'll be good. And if that thing ever goes red, not only will it be apparent to you, but you can get a notification. So Embassy OS can actually notify you that one of your services is unhealthy and then instruct or provide guidance on what to do about it. And this is very sophisticated stuff, right? That is half the challenge of being a systems administrator, is doing stuff like this. So it might sound trivial, but it really is not a viable platform without stuff like this at scale. So there's the health checks. Here we're defining our working directory and which ports we're exposing. These can actually be deleted. Those don't need to be there. They're there for informational purposes. Don't delete them right now. But and then you define your entry point, which is basically you telling right, these are all the things that you need for Hello World to work, including an instruction for here's where you go next. Okay, so you got your recipe. Now go to the Docker entry point in order to actually turn the thing on, right? Which earlier he said was the instructions. So it's not just the recipe, it's how you cook the thing. That's this, which is what we'll dig into next. Yeah.
And just so you know, you don't have to understand anything he just said.
Right.
As long as you know that this is where you need to change, you want to actually build your own tool.
Correct.
From the Hello World template.
So what would need to change here is if you wanted to build something other than Hello World, it would be this line.
Yeah.
You would be pulling in something else. What?
I promise I'm not trolling. I was asked just now, what, it's not necessarily clear what Hello World is, and I just want to make sure it's clear. Hello World is an abstract example idea of the most simple version of a type of software, essentially. So you might see Hello World in WordPress or whatever. They're showing the most simple version of an Embassy application.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure that's clear for people who Because I was just asked that question, so maybe other people also.
I'm gonna repeat this for the video as well. So hello world, I don't know if we properly defined it. If you were to go on Google and type in hello world application or hello world software, it would produce about 50,000 results, okay? Because almost every software platform in the world, whether you're developing for iOS, Android, Embassy OS, it doesn't matter. They all have their example of hello world. Hello world is a software convention, or a convention in the software world of like, if you want to build software for this platform, here's the shortest possible path to getting that software up and running. And it's always called Hello World. So this is our version of Hello World, which again is a service, just like any other service that's on the Embassy. It does one thing. It puts a web page up that says Hello World. That's all it does. Okay? And this is it. This is the HTML of Hello World. It says Hello BitBlockBoom. Hello BitBlockBoom. So we've edited it now. Yes.
Sorry. So if I wanted to load open source software onto my Embassy, I would have to use this screen right here.
No. When you say if you wanted to load, are you talking about you're saying if you're a user?
If I'm a user and I want to put some open source software and host it on my server, is that what we're talking about?
No. We're on the other side of the equation right now. I believe that you're asking your question is, as a user, if you want to use an Embassy, to run open source software, this has nothing to do with you. You're in the wrong room. This is for the developers who are building the stuff so that users can use it.
So they would put it up here in configuration that I could just click a button and all that stuff behind the scenes.
Yes. The whole point of all of this is so that you can go and be running Bitcoin.
I'd like to know how things work.
That's why you're here. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. No, you're in the right room. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so Docker entry point, again, we have our recipe. This is now the instructions for cooking it, okay? So it's not enough to just have your butter and oil. Somebody has to say, measure that much of this and then pour it into there and stir it, okay? That's Docker entry point. And what Docker entry point is it will be run every single time the user starts the service. So they just installed it and they click start. The second they click start, this is the file that executes. Then if they stop it and they click start again, this file will execute again. This is the instruction set for how to run the service once the user clicks start, or the operating system starts it automatically, which is also possible in certain cases. So in this case, all he's going to do is say echo service started, echo hi mom, which means that when you run hello world, and you were to look at your development console, it would say, service started, hi mom. That's it, that's all this is doing. And then this is the line that matters here, and it's really the only line that you need if you don't really need to do anything special with your service, is basically just exec means execute, right? Start. Teeny is a package that allows you to start things in a particular way, not something you need to worry about. Hello world. So he's basically just saying, start hello world. And at that point, the service itself takes over, right? So if you were saying, for instance, start Bitcoin, Bitcoin then has its own giant file system and set of instructions, and it knows what to do. It's going to start reaching out and getting peers and downloading blocks and doing all this stuff. Our job is just to tell Bitcoin to do that, like start, right? And sometimes that script is much bigger. The entry point can do all sorts of crazy stuff. Some of our ones, like LND, for example, I mean, it does a lot.
So you just replace hello world with a whole set of other instructions and then it goes?
Yes, assuming that you have your recipe in place, right?
I see the one button on that other screen.
Yeah, so
That's what's behind.
that assumes that you have your recipe in place, right? So this only works, this exec teeny hello world only works if your Docker entry, your Docker file has everything it needs for that command to work, okay? So that's it. So you got your recipe. Now we've got our instructions, which is literally just start it, right?
Is Teeny options for the hello world?
No, Teeny has nothing to do with hello world. It is a package from Alpine that helps you start services in a more efficient manner. I actually can't define it exactly because I don't know. Yeah. Aiden does. It's an efficiency thing. It's just a better way to click start in code.
It's also optional.
Yeah, you don't need to do that, correct. Yeah.
I didn't even know about it, so I learned something today.
Yeah, you could just write exec hello world and it would work. Okay.
Just a PNG file.
Yeah, so this is PNG, this is your logo, right? Because users want to see the logo. That's how they're going to identify the thing other than the title. So you should go get a PNG of appropriate size. Don't get like a 1700 by 1700 PNG. It doesn't need to be that big. It's a small screen. Okay, instructions. Again, these are your instructions to the user. These are not computer instructions. These are nothing to do with code. This is like normal person stuff here. It's just, you're just telling the user, you know, instructions for using Bitcoin. You're going to want a wallet. Go get a wallet. We recommend these ones, blah, blah, blah. These are human readable instructions, and they end up looking like this. So it's a markdown file, which means you can basically style it any which way you want. So you could be colorful, it could have photos, it can have links and headings, and right, you're basically just putting instructions together for the end user. Some of our instruction sets for our services is like, check out the official instructions at this link, right? And then we just link to that team's instructions because they have all the people and the knowledge to put them together properly, right? Like, we can't possibly put together a full instruction set for BTC Pay Server. They have like 18 pages of documents explaining how to use BTC Pay Server, and so we just leverage that. And our instructions say, you know, maybe something high level like, you know, this is what it is, this is what it does, this is probably how you should think about it, and oh, to learn more, click here, and it'll take you to their set of documents and instructions. License, your license will always be the license that is the underlying service. So if you're packaging something that is MIT, your license will also be MIT. If it's GPL, it will also be GPL, right? If their license is MIT, technically you could wrap that with any license you want, even a proprietary one. By convention, don't do that. That's not what this is about. Many of these upstream packages, when I say upstream packages, like the services themselves, like Bitcoin or LND, like a lot of these things are actually GPL, in which case you have no choice but to package it with the same license, right? So keep in mind here, there's like now two code bases. There's the code base of the thing you're packaging, like Bitcoin, and then there's this code base, which is the box, the wrapper around Bitcoin in order for it to run on Embassy OS. Both need a license. They should be the same. You should inherit whatever license they have already done. Otherwise, you could get into legal trouble or people will just get angry at you. Okay, yes?
General question. Is this what we're looking at here, this back-end stuff, is this proprietary in that it needs to run on Embassy software, which if I'm not mistaken is proprietary, the operating system software?
Correct. The Embassy, so you had two questions there, right? So the first question is what you're looking at here, and I don't think you mean the text editor itself. Like this, what we're doing in this workshop today is packaging up a service for Embassy OS. It will only run on Embassy OS. If you follow these instructions, the result will be what we call an S9PK, which is a file type binary that will run on Embassy OS. That's the point of this, right?
It's not going to run on Windows.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah. Right.
Like a Windows file won't run on a Mac.
Correct. Yeah. Right.
That's all I was wondering.
Yeah. So this is how to take something and make it run on Embassy OS.
So how do I ask two questions?
Because the second one is Embassy OS proprietary?
Oh, right. Well,
Right. So that's a nuanced question because it depends on how you define proprietary, right? So Embassy OS has a open source license. It does not have a free and open source license because it's non-commercial. You can do anything you want with Embassy OS, either in the code form or in the compiled form. Anything you want, except sell it. We're the only ones who are allowed to sell it. That is our current license. We've gotten in many debates about this. I'm not going to do one right now. If you want, there's a 3-hour debate on a Tales from the Crypt, or was a Rabbit Hole Recap show where I basically debated like 5 other people for 3 hours on this, and watch it. It's really interesting and good. Everyone has valid points, by the way. Like it's a nuanced question. Yeah. Yeah, it was super intense.
That was fun.
Okay. All right. So makefile, right? So what did we call this in the early one? We called it the
kitchen and the staff.
Sure. Okay. So the makefile is the staff around you that's going to produce the S9PK, right? Remember, like the whole goal here is to produce a binary, a file, a single file that Embassy OS can ingest in order to run a service that is baked into that file, okay? So that what you're baking, the recipe that you're cooking that was defined in the Docker file, is not just the service. It's not just Bitcoin. It's all the metadata wrapper stuff that's around Bitcoin. That's what you're trying to produce. So the make file is not for the service itself. The make file is your restaurant staff, where you're gonna say, okay, I've got the recipe in place, I've got the instructions for how to put the recipe together, I've got the icon, I've got the instructions for the user, I've got all my stuff in place, go. Like, everyone get to work. And at the end of this, it will spit out the file that you asked for. That's the make file, okay? It is following your instructions to produce the meal that you're trying to serve, the actual wrapper repository, okay? Manifest.yaml, this is actually the funnest part, right? I like manifest. Okay, so this is where you just kind of define, this is where all the magic happens, of Embassy OS, okay, of the wrapper. This is the metadata, right? So you have Bitcoin, and then all this stuff that you're gonna wrap around Bitcoin is right here. This is the service that surrounds the service. And when I say the magic, because in here you're just going to be defining a few things, and based on these definitions, Embassy OS does all sorts of advanced sysadmin stuff and just sort of makes it work. It's almost like magic. All of a sudden it just pops up as a web page, and you have no idea how. But you're defining it here, okay? So you got to give it an ID. In this case, the ID is hello world. Bitcoin is Bitcoin D. LND is, I think, actually Lightning Network daemon. We wrote it out. You got to give it a title. This will actually display to the user. Like, how do you want this thing to show up? For Bitcoin D, which is the ID, we actually call it Bitcoin Core, because that's what it is. It's not an alternative implementation of Bitcoin. We're using Bitcoin Core currently. So you have Bitcoin Core, and then you give it a version, right? This version is not your version necessarily. It's the version of the thing that you're packaging upstream, right? So this version should be the version of the service that's being packaged. For instance, today we're releasing BTC Pay Server 169. So that is where the 169 would go. Release notes is specific to this version. So you're providing the user with some notes. Like, hey, if you upgrade to 169, here's all the cool new stuff that you're getting. And again, the magic here is that you're writing release notes right here, right? All you're doing is filling in this line. And magically, at the end of the day, that line will appear beautifully formatted and, you know, presented to the user in a way that they can understand, blah, blah, and you didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. That's what Embassy OS does. You have to name the license, right? Not the language of the license, just what license it is, because we're going to display that to the user. So in this case, it's MIT. And then you're going to define the wrapper repo, the upstream repo, the support site, the marketing site. These are all helpful things to users. Like, if you're having trouble, where should you go? You as the service packager are providing the URL of where they would go. So for instance, if they come in here, right, so that's where they're displayed. So here's the license, instructions, source repository, wrapper repository, support site. These all display to the user in a nice user interface. But you are defining these things in this file. Okay, there's descriptions, huh? Yikes, okay. How should we speed this up? Okay, so it gets a lot sort of more esoteric, kind of like industry-specific knowledge when you get into this section, where you're defining, like, you know, your health checks. You're defining, you know, main here is like, where do the service files live? Yada yada. So this is it all collapsed. Thank you for doing that, by the way. So this is the extent of the file, and you would just open these up and make sure everything is filled in appropriately, which we're not going to do right now. And then that's it. So now you've got your manifest all set up.
And again, the documentation is very good for this. Like, anything you need,
very good.
Very well commented.
Not only that, but we also have in Embassy OS, if you find the hidden, the little, what do you call it? Not carrot, but Easter egg. Yeah, so in Embassy OS, if you go into Preferences menu and click the title 5 times, like a magic new console appears, and will essentially act as your playground for building manifests. So you can go in there and like change values and click preview, and it'll like actually show you, or config files too. It'll like show you how that will end up looking to the end user. So you can like in real time sort of change things, try things, and then see how it's going to look at the end. It's actually a very creative process.
That's the first time it's been said in the wild, so anywhere how fun.
Yeah, we all.
Sent you guys a message, right? Someone found it.
Yeah, no, there's no link back to the mothership. Sorry. Yeah, we don't advertise that super well because again, there's only a few people in the wild right now, like actively attempting to package services on their own, and we like to keep that very that feedback loop very strong. So we encourage people to come into our chat channels as they're going through this journey, because every time you hit a snag or a roadblock, like we're here to help. You're not on your own with this. We have a whole team of people and a community of people that are really excited about bringing more people into this process and helping. And in the meantime, you're going to learn a very valuable skill, right? If nothing else, attempting to package a service and hopefully eventually succeeding will make you kind of more powerful in the world. You will understand things that you did not understand before. Yes?
Quick question. Is this in a particular programming language?
What is this?
Well, it's software that you need to do this. If I was talking to a programmer and I said, you got to try this Embassy, they have this way of bringing open source in, and it's written in C++.
Embassy OS is written in Rust.
Rust.
Yes. The entire back end of Embassy OS is written in Rust.
I didn't know Rust until last week. I five services.
Yeah, you don't need to know Rust.
Oh,
because
you wouldn't need to know that.
No, packaging a service for Embassy OS does in no way require knowledge of Rust.
Okay.
The Embassy OS itself is written in Rust, just as an
You
FYI.
can write a program in any language and package it up.
Correct. Yeah, in fact, you don't even need to write the program. Right, like a program can be written in any language. Embassy OS doesn't care what the program is written in. It runs Bitcoin, it runs LND, those are written in totally different languages. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. All right.
Last one and then.
Sure, the README, this is strictly for devs, right? The README is it's like your instructions that you wrote earlier for the end user. This is like grandma who's running an embassy. Your README is for developers who want to understand what your package is and how to run it / use it, right? So it's a different set of instructions. And Hello World, again, comes with a template that you could just use and change the name and you'd be good to go.
Cool. So.
Did you just run make?
I just ran make.
Okay, great.
I literally just typed the word make. And it told the staff in the kitchen what to do.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's building it now.
So it just grabbed Alpine. Now it's, I think, compiling Hello World. Boy, it's really slow. Yeah, this is very slow. The internet sucks. So this is actually using the internet right now to go out there and grab Alpine, which is an operating system, and bring it into the context of the terminal in order to do more stuff. And it all just worked. Okay, so everything worked. And you can see at the end here, it says Embassy SDK verify S9PK. This is a verify step where Embassy OS actually sort of checks your work, right? If you made a mistake somewhere, if you forgot a colon or something in the manifest file, this will fail and will tell you why it failed. It's very helpful.
Now,
but it didn't fail.
This is somewhere on my system now, locally. I'm going to go look for that file.
Yeah, it'll be in the same directory that you were working in before. The S9PK will by default just be dropped in. And again, the S9PK is the final resulting executable binary that is two things. It is the service that you want to make available to people combined with the wrapper around it into a single binary.
Here's that famous drag and drop coming pretty soon.
You got that?
Hold on to this.
Make it bigger. Make it bigger.
Which part?
The whole screen. This, yeah. Oh, you can't drag and drop. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
I don't know. I can't drag and drop. I just don't know how to make it big. Oh, the whole screen.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, that. There you go. Okay. So yeah, this is dashboard. So you go into Embassy. It's going to drive down to sideload a service. Which, by the way, before you do this, let me tee this up for a second. Sideloading a service, because we're not going to get to the. We're not even going to get close to doing this. The second thing.
Not even.
Great, yeah. Hello World was the end of this. Yeah. We'll have to do it.
Come to Top You'll see it there.
So, sideloading a service. is not just a tool for developers, right? This is extremely valuable to the average person running an embassy, because before sideloading a service, if you wanted a service, Bitcoin, LND, you name it, you wanted to run something on your embassy, you had to go to a marketplace, right, where these things are listed. It looks like the App Store, the Google Play Store, right? You go there and you browse around. Do you want to show them that?
No, I was just gonna.
Yeah, okay. Click Marketplace real quick. This is our marketplace. This is our alpha marketplace where nothing works, right? So this is like the sandbox place where we throw all the services as we're developing them. And you browse, right? You click on things and then you install what you want. These binaries, like when you click install on one of these things, is coming from our server. Like Start9 is running a server that has these binaries on it that serves as the marketplace. And you click install, it's coming from us, which means you're trusting us. We hate this. We don't want you to trust us, right? It's cool if you do, but you shouldn't have to. That's the whole point, all right? So what we did was not only are we open sourcing the marketplace protocol specs such that anyone in the world can run their own marketplace, so that if you stop trusting us for whatever reason, you can go shop at Surfer Jim's marketplace and download binaries from him, no big deal, right? Like, you can get these services from anywhere. But step one wasn't to proliferate the number of competing marketplaces in the world. It was to enable you, the end user, to install a service without a marketplace at all. So the way that you can do this is called sideloading. All you have to do is get your hands on the S9PK that you want, right? This could be a file download from our website. It could be a file download from somebody's self-hosted Tor instance file browser, or somebody's Dropbox or Google Drive. It doesn't matter. You find somebody in the world who has this S9PK, the Bitcoin S9PK, and all you have to do is grab that file and drag it right in here. So go ahead and do it. So this little big drag place, he's going to take Hello World S9PK, drag it in, there it goes, and then he clicks upload and install. So what's happening in this scenario, there's no third parties at all. You got this S9PK, either because you built it yourself or because you had a friend who you trust give it to you. You drag it into your embassy dashboard and click upload. So instead of downloading a service from our server to your embassy, you're actually uploading the service from your laptop to your embassy, and it's installing there. Right? The end user experience is identical. You saw the percentages, it installed very quickly. Here it is, he clicks start. It's starting. Service started. Hi, Mom. Remember he put that in the Docker entry point file? Okay, so now it's running. Boom, the health check just passed. The web interface is available. Success, blah, blah, blah. He clicks launch UI. He's going to get a security warning because he has not trusted the SSL certificate that the embassy is serving on this browser. That's fine. We're going to power right through it and say we don't care. And it says, hello, BitBlockBoom. Okay? What? That's it. Hello world says hello BitBlockBoom. That's what it does. The service did its job. It's just like Bitcoin. What's up?
So given the implications to Git of the array of cache info now,